This is North Pod, a North Melbourne fan podcast, hosted by Jason Hunt.
Now the backs there are. He backs it. He kicks it. Oh, the fall from Dersma. This is the speed of the culture. 3 bounces down the wing. He keeps going. 4 bounces. Joining the chorus. The Can't Lose Kangas are AFLW premiers.
Hello and welcome back once again to North Pod. And here we are. We are 4 episodes now into this run of North Pod. The pre-season is well and surely underway now. I am still recording. It's the last one that I'm kind of recording a bit ahead of time. So no doubt there will be some things that I don't cover here that have happened recently. But next episode, I'll be back sort of in a more or less on time kind of schedule. Just wanted to bank a little bit, get myself a little bit ahead as the year starts. So this episode, we're going to talk about some overs and unders. I did an episode like this early in the year last year, kind of, I guess, previews / predictions kind of vibes. I put a post out or a couple of posts out on the different social media channels to get a few suggestions. So I'm going to start with those ones, then I'll reel off a couple of my own, and then we'll finish off with a couple of just flat out predictions as opposed to over-unders. And that should round it out. I guess a bit more of a relaxed vibe. I've got a bit of a schedule here or a run sheet, but we'll just see how the episode goes. I guess if you're not familiar with the concept, it's a very, I guess it's a betting kind of inspired thing, but also I think it's pretty American. But essentially, there's a line or a statement, and then I'll be saying whether I think or whether I'm expecting it to be over or under that amount. So as an example, it might be, someone plays 15 and a half games. So obviously, if I'm predicting over, I think they're going to play 16 or more. Or if I'm selecting under, they're going to play 15 or less. That's kind of the vibe. Some of them are a bit more serious than others, and that's okay. But hopefully, you kind of get the gist based on that explanation. So yeah, without any further ado, I reckon let's get straight into it. So the first one comes from a regular tweeter or ex-poster, Roo Soet, and he said happy fatherhood. Thank you, Roo Soet. Little Raf's going very well. Thank you. More interested in the forward 50 tackle. We were shocking last season. Whatever the stat is in 2024, we'll be taking overs this year. Well, I've done the fact finding for you. So last year, I've still got to think about it now. Last year, we averaged 8.4 tackles inside 50 per game. That was last in the competition. So if we're setting that as our line at 8.4, I am definitely happy to take over on that one. I do think that will improve. Whether or not it's a great improvement, I don't know. I think the Jack Darling inclusion definitely helps. I think Jacob Stanty could also help if he plays. I think Paul Curtis is going to bring it. So I do expect, I guess, our forward half tackles to improve, but it's not going to be a massive improvement. To give some context, Port Adelaide were the best in the competition for this last year. They averaged 13.2. Sort of, the average or the middling mark's about 11 tackles inside 50 per game. So last season we were 8.4. If we could get ourselves close to 10, sort of in the high 9 points, that would be great. Even if we just get ourselves above 9 and improve on last year, I think that would be a success. So I'm taking over on the 8.4 for sure, but if it's only a small improvement, I wouldn't be too surprised, because like a lot of the things I'm going to go through, I guess, it's hard to make really large leaps over a single year. I think we've just got to get that trajectory going in the right direction to start off with. Moving on to the next one, North_ball. Bryn Teakle to kick over 50 goals. And North_ball thinks he's going to kick over. So I've set the line at 29.5 goals as a result. I'm taking under on that one. I just don't know if there's going to be as many opportunities in 2025 for Bryn Teakle to play games and also to score goals. I think he'll play, but I don't expect him to play every game. I think there's going to be some games that we go a bit taller and we want to play Larky, Darling and Teakle in the forward line. there might also be games where Chom goes forward and we're definitely not playing all 4 of them in the forward line. So, yeah, I don't expect Teakle to play enough games, I don't think, to kick 29.5 goals or more. So I'm taking under on that one. I would be happy to be pleasantly surprised if he does kick 30-odd goals. Based on what we saw last year, I just don't know if I see it. I think he's good for about a goal a game if he plays. So that gets him to 23 goals if he was to play every game. I just don't see a world in which he kicks more goals than that, I don't think. But again, happy to be wrong. Plumpo 21, Xerri 850.5 hitouts. That is a lot of hitouts, Plumpo 21. I think I have to take under on that one. Xerri had 794 hitouts last year, so he's about 50-odd short of that line. Only Riley O'Brien broke the 850 mark last year. He had nearly 898 hitouts. Brodie Grundy was next with 837, and then Oscar McInerney 809, and then Xerri was fourth, 794. Is it possible? It is. I think I'm taking under just because I don't expect his ruck work to dramatically change this year to last year. He played every game last year, so he'd have to do that again and then, get 60-odd more hitouts. Look, maybe he will, but I guess that's not the area of his game that I think, in terms of the volume of hitouts, that we need to work on. I think he'll end up with, probably something in the 700s if he has a year anything similar to what he did last year, but it's probably more the quality of the hitouts that I'm looking for a slight uptick in, and also just in general, it's the marking around the ground that I think is the big area of improvement for him. So, look, I'd love it if he has more than 850, but it's not high on my shopping list, I guess, for Tristan Xerri, but certainly expect him to have plenty of hitouts again in 2025. Jack Crow 6, Will Phillips to play 12.5 games. Controversial one on this one, Jack Crow 6. I think I'm taking over, and that could be a controversial opinion. I don't know how much I believe it either. It's hard to see where he fits into the side right now as it stands. Perhaps when you're listening to this in a sort of 3 or 4 weeks' time, that answer will be a little clearer because we will have had some scratch match and a bit more pre-season, a bit more exposed form, as it were. But I think I just have to back him in. I really rate his talent. I'm actually going to hold off this conversation because I've got a prediction that relates to him a little bit later on. So 12.5 games, I'm taking over. For context, last year he played 11, the year before 16. 2022 he didn't have COVID. That was a COVID. The year after COVID, in fact. He had glandular fever, so he didn't play. And then his debut season, 2021, he played 16 games. So 2 out of his 4 seasons, he has been able to notch past that line. And I'm going to back him to do it again, even though I don't know how much I believe it. I want to believe it. I want him to succeed. I think he's a ripper bloke. TNT footy, North to win 9.5 games. I have to take it under on that one. Geez, I'd love it if we could beat that line. I want to be wrong, but our record the last 5 years is dismal, to say the least. 3 wins, 2 wins, 4.5 wins, 3 wins across the past 5 years. Says that for us to get 10 or more would be a massive effort. I just can't see it. I think a leap, similar to what I was talking about with the tackles inside 50, a leap of that significance, I just think is too much to predict. Who knows? Things can happen. Oftentimes, someone does jump out of the bottom 4 and win a large amount of games. But it's just hard to see that being us this year. Potentially the year after. If everything falls into place and we're seeing some of that development and growth as we expect to. Maybe. But I don't know if I see that as a distinct possibility for 2025. But, boy, again, I'd love to be wrong on that one. I'm probably tipping more in the range of 5, 6, 7 wins, I think, as opposed to 10. But, again, would love to be wrong. Next one, M. Kerr 26 Dozer. I do apologise if I'm getting any of these incorrect. He just said Paul Curtis 45.15. I'm going to take that to mean 45 goals. Maybe the 15's his behinds that you're predicting. So if I take the line as 45.5 goals for Paul Curtis, I do, again, I'd love to be wrong about this one as well. I think I'm going to take under on this one. He kicked 30 last year, 17 and 12 the years prior to that in his first couple of years. I think he could push towards 40. I think there's every chance this year that he gets towards 40. I think to get to 46 is, again, probably too large of a jump. And I also don't know yet if he is going to be that super high goal scoring forward. He's our best pressure small medium forward right now, and I think that's probably where a lot of his investment and energy is going into, is to bring that tackling and that pressure. So of course you want him doing both. You want him kicking goals as well. I just, to go from 30 up to 45 odd goals, I think is probably unrealistic given how many goals I'm expecting we're going to kick next year as a team. So like I said, I think optimistically maybe he get to 40, could be kicking nearly 2 a game. I can't see him getting to that complete 2 goal a game margin and getting to 46. But again, would love to be wrong. I think he will come on in leaps and bounds this year, nonetheless, even though I am writing off that possibility. Kevin Frost, 59, he had a couple of suggestions here. Dersma under Darling's on-field coaching to kick 20.5 goals. And Kevin thought over. And you know what, Kevin? I'm going to agree with you on that one. I think so long as Dersma plays plenty of games. I know he's had a bit of an injury-interrupted pre-season, so at this stage, again, I'm in the past, but he's no certainty to be playing in round 1. But if he is able to get himself fit and play most of the year, I would expect him to be kicking maybe about a goal a game. And so that takes him right around that 20.5 goals mark. I'm going to back him in to kick a couple of sort of bags of 3 or 4, which, should make it, I think, possible for him to end up with 25 goals, 23 goals, 22 goals, something like that. He only kicked 9 last year, but, first year didn't play, probably played 2/3 of the games, played a few as the sub as well, or got subbed out, one of the two. So, I'm going to back him in. I do think that Darling will be helpful for him. I don't know to what extent, how helpful on the field, but I do think Darling will be helpful for that forward group in terms of taking some of the pressure off a few of the other players, and Dersma would be one of those. I think Darling will create a couple of pack situations which would allow Dersma to kind of jump across the pack in that sort of signature style that he has. So, I think that's definitely possible. I'm going to take over on that one for Dersma to kick 20.5 goals. And Kevin Frost, 59, second line, Xerri and Curtis to combine for 75.5 goals. Kevin's taking over. I have to take under on that one. I guess linking back to the Paul Curtis one from earlier on, if Curtis kicked 30 last year, Xerri kicked 29, so they've kicked 60 between them, rounding up. Xerri's never kicked more than 34 in a season. Curtis's was a career high last year with 30s. So again, we're only getting to 64, 65 there. We need another 10 or 11 on top of that. I just can't see it. I am expecting the goal scoring to be quite the spread from anyone not named Nick Larkey. I think he's going to kick plenty. I'll talk a little bit about him later on, I think. So certainly he will kick more goals, but I think the other forwards, there's not going to be that sort of second key pillar that's kicking, nearly as many or close to as many as Nick Larkey. I think it's just going to be a nice spread of those other players like Xerri, like Paul Curtis, like Jack Darling, potentially Brent Teakle, Chom if he's forward, Robert Hansen Jr., or whoever gets that smaller forward role, and then those midfielders that are rotating through. A lot of those players, I think, are going to end up with goal tallies sort of in the teens, pushing up to the high 20s and 30s if you're maybe in second or third for our team's goal kicking. But I just don't know if I see a situation in which, like I said, there's someone not named Nick Larkey kicking 40 plus, and that would have to be the case for Xerri and Curtis to combine for more than 75 goals. So at that line, I'm taking under Kevin, but again, happy to be wrong. Happy if Xerri and Curtis end up with 100, you can feel free to hit me up in the comments come the end of the season and tell me I was wrong, because I'd be happy to be wrong about that one as well. Next one, Lachlan C. She's to finish in the top 5 of the Brownlow. I guess I'm taking under in that I don't think he'll achieve that much, or over, like his ranking will be higher a higher number than that. You get the idea. I just can't see him finishing in the top 5 given the amount of games that we're going to win. Don't get me wrong, he's a good player. He's going to poll last year's Brownlow. He did poll 15 votes, and we only won 3 games, so a pretty fantastic effort. And that was even with LDU polling 18 votes. So between the two of them to poll, 33, I think is pretty amazing given the amount of games that we lost. I don't think that he's going to poll enough to get us to the top 5. Maybe he could crack sort of the top 15 or so, potentially, if he turns out, or if he's able to play this midfield forward role consistently and really prolifically throughout the year. But yeah, LC, I'm just not sure that I see a top 5 finish. But again, love to be wrong about that one. Would be stoked, in fact, to be wrong about that one. Going to jump over to Reddit now. It's a bit of a different vibe over there. So some of these are just sort of interesting to think about, and some of them are over-underlined. So Jar bless the crop. Abusive comments on Instagram directed at Luke McDonald, Dylan Stevens, and Jack Darling. 10,000.5, and he is taking the over on that one. Sure, I'll take the over on that one with you. I think particularly Elmac. Although, look, since I recorded last, Luke McDonald has, I guess, stepped down from being captain, or took himself out of the running to be the captain, and Jai Simpkin is the sole captain now. And I do think a part of that has to be that McDonald's maybe seeing his role as not guaranteed in the side. So I think with less expectation on him, he's probably going to cop a little bit less flack. But Dylan Stevens was certainly a bit of a whipping boy last year, and I could kind of see why. Jack Darling, it's a little too early to be a whipping boy, but I know there were some people that didn't want him at all. So I get that. I think, between McDonald and Stevens, there'll be plenty of hate. And depending on how Jack Darling starts the year, I'm sure there'll be some abusive comments directed his way as well. I do not condone that at all, but I will take the over, because I just probably have a bit of a cynical view on how people are going to react to them. Background card 3583. Do not want to get that number wrong. He just says 5.5 wins. I think I'm going to take over on this one. I mentioned before, I think we're good for 6 or 7. So that sounds like more than 5.5 to me. I think we're on the cusp of this. So if it was 5 or it was 4, I wouldn't be... No, I think 5, I wouldn't be shocked. If it's 4 or under, I think that's where we've got probably a bit of a problem in terms of our trajectory. Maybe if it was 4 and you had lots of honourable losses and the percentage was much stronger, like you could see an argument for that. But I think realistically, and in terms of the whole competition view, we're going to need 5 or more. And I think it's really going to take 6 or 7 for the pressure to be off a little bit, because everyone will be able to see that growth. So I'm going to take over on the 5.5. I do think we could get to 6 or 7. And I'll talk a little bit how I'm expecting the season to go towards the end of the pod. Owners a Stoner is the next one. What a username. He's got a couple here. Darling 16.5 games. He's taking over. I'm also going to take over on that one. I think Darling will play most games. Not every game. I think he'll get a couple of rests, but I think he'll play more than 16 games. So I'll take over. And we'll see. I do expect that this year he's probably going to play the most football that he will play for North Melbourne, and then as that deal goes on, potentially less and less. But again, that's going to depend on form, I guess. If he plays the first 10 or so weeks, he's not really providing much of a goal threat. We're finding that he's slowed down. He's not applying that forward pressure. Then things can change. But at this stage, I'm probably taking over on that one. Well, I am taking over on that one. George Ward, this is another Owners a Stoner one. George Wardlaw, 18.5 games. He's taking under. I think I'm taking over with that one. I think we saw last year that if he can avoid concussion, his body's good to go. So 18.5, I think he could play 20 to 23 games. I think his body's great. And so, I'm going to take over. I'm going to believe in the Warlords' body readiness. 1.5 All Australians. Owners of Stoner is taking over. I'm taking under on that. I can't see a situation in which we get 2. Squad is a different situation. We could get 2 or 3 in the squad, but I still think we're going to be too low down on the ladder to get any more than 1. So whether that was, if Xerri has another belter of a year, maybe he could get there. I mean, again, if Larky had a belt of a year, perhaps he could get in there. They're the two that right now you'd look at it and go, they're a chance. And then, Sheasel and LDU, whoever ends up being, our absolute best midfielder for the year would be in with a shot, you would think. Look, who knows? But I just, given the amount of wins we're expecting, or I'm expecting, I think more than one All-Australian is a big ask. I'm happy to say one. I'm happy to predict that one of those guys will get in, but not more than that. So I'm taking under on that. Percentage of 90. Owners of Stoner is taking over on that one. I'm going to take under, but I think only just. For context, the last year, 71.2%, so abysmal. We did get slaughtered in the last 2 games against the Dogs and the Hawks, which certainly did not help our percentage. It certainly plummeted it. So, if you take those 2 out, we still had a really bad percentage. But I think for us, a percentage in the 80s would be a good result. The higher in the 80s, obviously, the better. I just don't see us quite getting to that 90 this year. Again, it's a lot of that. I'm expecting growth, but I just can't sit here and honestly say I think we're going to shoot up the ladder and be in top 8 contention. And so, a percentage of 90, I just, again, would love to be wrong. I feel like that's the theme of this episode. Would love to be wrong, but I'll take 80s at this point. Given we were in the low 70s last year, I will take 80s every day of the week. Under on the 90 though. I think let's aim for 85. Let's set that as a bit of a benchmark, as it were. Dale _Doug_R_Hole. Dale dug a hole. Good on you, Dale. I got a couple of funny ones here. Sonia Hood to throw some light shade at critics on social media when we nab a few early wins. 3.5 occasions. I'm taking under on that one. I think that she will take the high ground on that. She's not going to be throwing some shade. She might use some humour. I just don't know if it'll be shade. So, Sonia's above that, I reckon. Also, she's not really... I guess she has been back on Instagram. She's on Instagram. I think she's off X, which is probably fair enough. Caro to ride off our season by May, even if we're 4-0. Dale thinks that's a certainty. Look, I don't love Caroline Wilson, don't get me wrong, but I'm also not a hater of her. I don't really any media. Certainly when I was younger, I'd get really caught up in journalists. I really didn't look like Craig Hutchinson. That kind of moved on to Damien Barrett. And I guess you can see this theme where I really didn't like the major journalists that were covering the game. Because I just thought they, beat stories up. But the older I've gotten, the more I've realised it's just more on me, really. Like, you've got to understand what they're there for and what their job is. And anyway, I could go down a whole tangent on that. I'm not a journalist lover. I just don't find myself investing anymore in, giving my energy towards hating or disliking them. So if Caro writes it off, power to her. But I don't think she will if we're at May. I think she'll... I mean, her side, Richmond's going to be going just as well as ours, if not worse. So I don't know that, she'll have much of a leg to stand on anyway. A lot of these ones from Dale are not necessarily over-unders, but I do think they're worth reading. Eddie Maguire to try and co-opt the North Melbourne Grand Final breakfast for Collingwood. 100%, no doubt. Don't know if he attends regularly. It's not something that I've actually really paid too much attention to myself, but if there's anything that Eddie Maguire can do, he can co-opt anything into being a Collingwood thing. LDU to ignite my midlife gay awakening with 42 touches against the Dons. Yes, inject that into my veins. If LDU's getting 40 touches, sure, he might butcher a few of them, but plenty of them must be some scintillating stuff. So inject that into my veins. I want to see that. And final one, Clarko asked to apologise after manhandling a cadet journo from the Herald Sun. You can write your own odds on that one, says Dale dug a hole. I'm going to say on that one, specifically no, but vibes, yes. I think something along those lines will happen. I think that specific one, I'm not willing to buy into as it is. But I think Clarko is going to find himself in some hot water at one stage or another this year. It just, we know what his temperament is. We know that we're not going to be winning every week. And so there's going to be some opportunity for him to let off some steam. Well, I think he's going to find some opportunities to let off some steam one way or another. So, yeah, I think there'll be something, is my prediction. It's not really a hot take at all, I don't think. I think most people would suggest there's going to be something. It's just, I hope there's nothing too untoward. I hope there's something that can be laughed off as opposed to something that gets him into some actual trouble. So thank you to all those people that sent in some suggestions for me. Apologies that you've had to wait nearly a month to get those heard. I was trying to get on top of things and get myself ahead. So hopefully you've held out long enough to hear yours read out. I'm just going to reel off a couple of my own over-unders here. Not too many, but a couple based off last year and what I did with that. So average score for us to kick, 72.5. That was, I guess, the line that I set last year. Last year we didn't get there. Our average score last year was 70.4. So can we find another 2 or 3 points each game for this year? Can we kick another goal every 2 games? I think we can. I think we'll head up higher into the 70s. I'm not expecting our firepower to dramatically improve, but I do think injecting Jack Darling into there, having another year of Zane Dersma developing, another year of Paul Curtis developing, and our midfield looking pretty strong. I think there's going to be opportunities up forward for sure. So yeah, I'll take over on 72.5 as our average score for. As our average score against, it was kind of hard to set a line for that one because we've been a little bit up and down with this one. So last year, horrendous defence, 110.9 was our average score against. The year before, 100.8, and then the year before that in 2022 was 109. So we've conceded some big scores. That average score against, again, it did blow out in the last couple of weeks, but not significantly. Like 2 weeks out of 23 doesn't, make the whole thing. So if I'm setting the line at about 100, because we were able to essentially get to that in 2023, and then we regressed a little bit with Griffin Logue out. The defensive stocks were pretty slim last year. We had lots of options, just not a lot of options that really appealed or were up to the level. So I think we're going to improve. Our defense will improve. If Chom does play there, we've got another year of development into him. Griffin Logue's going to be back. Aiden Core is in some pretty good form. Hopefully Josh Goda can come back and have an impact. There's options there. So I'm going to go with under. I think that's a bold prediction. I don't know if that's the right word, but I guess what I'm trying to say there is I don't have a lot of confidence in that prediction. But I guess, yeah, we'll see. I think our defense has to be better than it was last year. There's no doubt about that for me. We score 100 or more as a team 2.5 times. I'm taking over on that. I think there'll be a couple of games next year where we're able to really get things going and kick some bigger scores. So I'm happy to take the overs on that one. Last year, I think we only notched it once, maybe. I'm going out on a bit of a limb, but I think there'll be a couple of games where we're able to string it together, get a bit of confidence. Because once the confidence starts flowing, I do think the younger players we'll be up to it. So, yeah, I'll have to take over. I think 3 or 4 games we kick 100 and kick a larger score. And like I said, I guess if we're going to win a few more games, I'm expecting that if some of those might come in higher scoring encounters. We'll see if any of that North ball from last preseason comes back. We seem to put that away pretty quickly as the year went on. But, I think that free-flowing footy, certainly off half-back, is going to be the goal. And so sometimes when that hits and goes well, we can expect some bigger scores, I think. Nick Larkey to kick 50.5 goals. So for context, last year he kicked 46, then before that 71 in 23. That was a big season. Then 38, 42, and then 2020 was he's still a young player there, 14. So to kick, he's only kicked over 50 once. That was in his All-Australian year. He nearly got there last year, and he nearly got there. He got kicked 42 in 2021 in his breakout year. I'm going to take over. I think he's going to kick more than 50 goals, and my reasoning is I think he's still the kingpin, and I think because the rest of the forward line around him is going to be a little bit stronger. I haven't mentioned Luke Parker at all, but he's one that will play some forward line time, and I think be a threat. I think that's going to allow Nick Larkey to have more opportunities. We know that he's a player that doesn't need a lot of opportunities to kick a lot of goals. So, yeah, I could see him kicking 50-something goals. I'm not going to be as bold to predict that he's going to kick 70-odd again, but I could see him kicking, 55, 56 goals, particularly, like I said, if we're playing a little better, he's getting a little bit more service, and the spread of dangerous players around him is higher. It just means that less players are able to sag off their opponents and double and triple team him. That's what we've seen opposition do to him across the last few seasons. Essentially, someone like Toby Pink or Bryn Teakle, if they're playing forward, their opposition's just sagging off and banking on the fact that they're not gonna hurt him, and they're going and supporting Nick Larkey's defender, whoever that might be. So I think the less that teams are able to do that, the more Larkey's going to kick goals. Or if I'm wrong and they're just going to double down and keep doing that, I'm okay with being wrong about it, because that probably means some of our other players are getting opportunities. So yeah, I'm taking over. I'm going to say that Larkey's going to have another big year and probably bounce back from, he had a quieter start to last season. I thought his second half was better. I'm going to back him in to have a more consistent year, I think, in 2025. And the last line that I'm going to predict an over and under for, Finn O'Sullivan plays 15.5 games. Our number one draft pick, or the player that we picked with our first pick in the draft, 15.5. I'm going to take over. I think if he is uninjured, he will play 18 to 20 games. I don't think he's going to do a Harry Sheezel and play every game. We saw Colby McKercher would have played every game last year, but he did pick up a couple of niggles. I just think with Finn O'Sullivan, he didn't play the entirety of last season. He had some injuries as well. I think, 18 to 20 games would be a fantastic result. I'm going to pick over 15.5. That kind of gives him the opportunity to have a little bit of an injury and spend 3 or 4 weeks out and still make it. But I think even if his form's not great, I think it'd be good enough to keep him in the side as a young developing player. So yeah, similar to Sheezel and McKercher, I think he will play most of the year, and so therefore I'm going to say more than 15.5 games. And I just can't wait to see what he could be. Thinking about the amount of these really high draft picks we've got now with Sheezel, Wardlaw, McKercher, Dersma, Finn O'Sullivan now joins that group. We've got a really good young elite bunch, or potentially elite bunch, and it's going to be so exciting in the next couple of years to see them develop. And so therefore, I think we need to be playing Finn O'Sullivan in order for him to develop. So there's all of the over-unders that I'm going to roll through. Hopefully that was worth listening to or interesting to listening to. Feel free to hit me up with what I got wrong. I probably, if I remember, and again, you can remind me, at the end of the year, I'll go through and see what I got right and wrong. I've written it down in my document so I can hold myself accountable. I did that last year and we ended up okay. We were better than 50%, so better than the flip of a coin. So hopefully we can continue that later on this year and we can look back on this. And I'm sure, always is the case. Last year I had some predictions about Taron Thomas that, obviously we became irrelevant. There's always some things that transpire that make the predictions seem insignificant or just irrelevant. But for the most part, it'll be interesting to have a look back at them. So the last thing that we're going to do for this episode, I'm just going to make, I guess, five predictions for the season as a whole. Some of these I feel more strongly or more confidently about than others, but here I guess some things that I'm expecting or I'm thinking we might see play out across the year. Number one, I do think we will start sluggishly. Unfortunately, I think our draw is not easy to start off. It's going to be hard, I think, for us before the draw to notch too many wins. But I do think the second half of the season will get going and we'll scrape out of the bottom two. And I'm predicting that we're going to finish 16th. So whether or not that's sort of 7 wins, 8 wins, I'm not too sure on the exact win counter, but I think we're going to scrape out of the bottom two. We're going to play much better footy in the second half of the year. But I do think there'll be a bit of scrutiny for us in that first half. I know all eyes are going to be on where we finish because of that Matt Whitlock trade. Richmond must be just licking their lips, hoping that we finish on the bottom again. And I think they'll be absolutely happy if they're able to have us finish like third bottom. Like they'll be totally happy with that as well. But yeah, I think 16th is where we're going to finish, but with a bit of a trajectory that's leading us forwards in the future. So that's prediction number 1. Prediction number 2, I think we are going, when I say we, I guess the North Melbourne fans, the media to an extent, we're going to spend large chunks of the year arguing and debating about which key position player would be better or belongs at each end of the ground, particularly with Chom. He's going to be that major one like he was last year as a year forward or a back, but I think we'll see the same conversation with Will Dawson and with Whitlock, and to a lesser extent with Maley and Pink. For my 2 cents, I think Will Dawson back, Chom forward, Whitlock can actually, I'm happy for him to have a go at both in the VFL for now and kind of see where he lands. At this stage, I'm happy if he's kind of developing both of those, given he's a swingman as a player. And then with Maley and Pink, I really don't mind. I think Maley is going to end up as a ruck forward. I think Pink's good as a defender as depth. That's about it. But I think there's going to be a lot of discussions about that talking point as the year develops, because we still really don't have a clear idea about the best position for each of those players, particularly Chom. I think where he plays is going to be a massive talking point across the year. Prediction 3 is not one that I enjoy making, but I think it's reality. I think CCJ will make a return to the AFL side mid-season, but I think he's going to find the going tough, and he's either going to be delisted or given a 1-year deal at the end of the year. Like I said, it's not a prediction that I enjoy making. I'm not sure where he and his frame and his athleticism and the fact that he's coming off an Achilles injury fits into this side. I really hope I'm wrong and that he comes in mid-year and just, clunks marks, kicks goals and is serviceable in the ruck. That would be amazing, but I just don't see it. I think, unfortunately, he's probably going to be end up delisted. And maybe he plays 5 or 6 games this year. We'll see. I hope I'm wrong, but I definitely think, no doubt about it, we will see him play at AFL level this year unless he gets another serious injury. On the opposite side, LDU is my 4th prediction. I think he will sign late in the year. I'm going to say in the round 16 to 17 kind of areas, just before the free agency talk actually functionally ramps up. I think he's going to play some scintillating contract year football. I think our football is going to improve in the second half of the year. The stars will align and he's going to sign to a long-term big money deal. I'm talking the ballparks of 1.1, 1.2 million a year for 6 or 7 years. And potentially one of those could be higher and the other slightly lower. So what I mean by that is maybe if he gets a longer deal, say an 8 or a 9-year deal, maybe the money comes down a fraction, sort of more like $1 million per year, which, keeping in mind the salary cap is going up. So $1 million a year is not crazy at all. Or maybe if it's a shorter deal, more like a 4 or a 5-year deal, we're seeing, offers of 1.3, 1.4, even 1.5 million a year. Again, the salary cap's going up. If the deal's a bit shorter, you could see that potentially you could pay him a little bit more in that deal. So I believe he'll sign. I have absolutely no insider knowledge, but I just think he's such a great fit culturally for the club. He's a quieter guy. He's not quite in the realms of Ben Cunnington, but there's some similarities there where he doesn't strike me as the kind of player that wants all the attention on him. I think he's happy for others to do the media and I guess be more of those poster players, but I think he'll sign. I know St Kilda is dangling a lot of money at him and there's definitely the threat, but I'm going to put my name to it. I think he'll sign and I hope he does. He's worth that amount of money to us. I understand that the concern is that if you sign him to too much money, then how are we going to keep all of these young players that when they're coming up for their next contracts the next 3, 4, 5 years, we're also needing to pay them a lot. That's a concern. But look, LDU is that one midfielder that we have that's in his prime, that is firing. We have to pay him. We can't afford not to pay him. So find the money. Whatever we have to do, I think we will find the money and we will sign LDU. Like I said, not before the year starts, I don't think. Not early in the year, but I think just before. Typically players don't really sign in the very last few rounds. It's typically sort of, around 15, 16, 17, or when the season's done, sometimes they'll sign, or earlier on. So, any of those could happen, but that's my prediction. My final one. I predict, and this is, I guess, linking in with one of the over-unders that I spoke about earlier on, I think WillPhil is going to find a role in the side and get himself a 2 or 3 year contract extension this year. He's only on a 1 year deal, so he's going to need to play his guts out. But I honestly think he's going to play 18 to 20 games by year's end. What his specific role is, I'm going to wait and see how the preseason plays out for me to figure that out. If it is tagging like he did a little bit of last year, great. But I also think there's a chance that he could be just an out-and-out inside mid under the watchful eye of someone like Luke Parker. This is one of those ones where I'm choosing to believe it more than I do because I want it to be true. I think he has so much in the ways of leadership. We saw how well he supported the AFLW side through their run through the finals. He's a great clubman, and so that is one part of it. But I do know that there are some fantastic skills within him. I spoke about it last week in terms of he's a fantastic kick inside 50. He's got great hands. He's a really good contested player. It's just whether or not he can find the footy enough. He's not super quick, but he doesn't need to be super quick if he has other attributes. So I'm going to back him in. Right now, I totally get it. It's hard to see where he fits into the midfield group. There's so many players playing through there. Look, who knows? Maybe he's reinvented himself. He's going to be a pressure forward. There's every possibility that we see something that we're not expecting. But I'm going to back him in. I think he's going to get himself a contract extension and play, like I said, 18 to 20 games. So that is my 5 predictions. To summarise them, we're going to start slow, but we're going to come on and have a great end of the year. We're going to be talking about those key positions, swing people, all year. CCJ, unfortunately, I don't think is going to make it. LDU signs towards the end of the season or the 2/3 mark of the season for a big deal. And WillPhil gets it together, finally plays some consistent AFL footy and earns himself a contract extension. That is what I'm putting my name to. I guess, again, like the over-under predictions, we can come back and revisit them at the end of the year and probably laugh at how some of them were turned out. But I don't expect that to be the case. I think I'm pretty bang on with all of those. So hit me up on the social media and let me know what I've got horribly wrong. I'm sure it's plenty. I'd love to chat with you about, I guess where you think the season's going to go. If you've got any predictions for how the season might play out. Next week, I'll be back with the more or less present day, if you want to call it, episodes. So probably chatting match simulation or practice matches by the time we get to that. So look out for that. And I mentioned it last episode. If you've made the jump to Blue Sky, you can follow me there. I think I'm just North Pod. So if you happen to be over there, you can follow Blue Sky. I'll be posting there throughout the year. Also, subscribe to the podcast on your chosen podcast platforms and tell your North Melbourne supporter mates to get involved with the pod. And let's get ready for the games to start really happening. We're pretty close to the start of the season now. It's exciting. Yeah, let's get into it. Let's start playing some football rather than just talking about the hypotheticals, because we can only do that for so long. That's going to do it for the pod. Tune back in next week and we'll get right into it. As always, go North. Thanks for listening to another episode of North Pod. If you give me a rating or review on your podcast service, that would be much appreciated. And please follow me on all social media at North Pod Show. I'm on X or Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and I'm also very active on the North Melbourne subreddit. Hope you'll join me for the next episode.